What's up, model guys? I am doing the next video of the ME262, and also definitely check out the interior build of the ME262 cockpit that I did in my previous video. It's really descriptive and informative on how to build and go about going a German cockpit. So it's just one of those things that you might want to check out, maybe help you on one of your other builds. Anyways, we're continuing on with this ME262 interior, and I'm doing the gun bays, and I'm also going to do some pre-gluing and stuff so that I can take that hatch off and put on an open hatch for it. Right now, I'm just priming the interior of the cockpit and gun bay area so that everything's nice and ready to receive the paint that I'm going to put on. As you're well aware, Tamiya has a pretty good line of kits that are really well fitting, so I wanted to make sure to do a good job on this kit, even though I don't really care for the 262 very much anyways. So I'm priming this area in black, and gonna do some chipping methods. I did a dark gray on some other areas so that it kind of showed like a German kind of color on the interior. Not sure actually what exact interior color German color is. Like Americans always olive drab, obviously, but Germans, I don't know. I always find a different result on my research, so I really struggled with that this time. But I'm doing the interior gun with just some aluminum color, and spraying this aluminum color from Vallejo is really practical. So these Vallejo colors I have in their silver line are really nice for nice smooth finishes. They have self-leveling agent in them and makes them really smooth when done airbrushing. So it's definitely something to pick up. They're kind of expensive. They're $40 for 5 bottles of each of the aluminum sets. So definitely make sure you want to, kind of consider maybe just going the alkyd route other than a latex route. But for me, they work good, and I like latex paints. Actually, before I finished all this basic chipping stuff, or assembling all the interior, I didn't realize that you could actually see the underside of the actual cockpit from the gear bay. So that's just something I didn't know before, and it was actually really interesting and neat to look at when done with the model. But here I'm just applying some simple sponge chipping methods and silvering methods to my guns. Very basic, nothing really special, as this is mostly going to be covered up, but I'm just leaving the hatch temporarily glued so I can remove it if I want. When I use a sponge, I try not to leave too much paint on there, but I don't want to wipe too much off either. Now I can assemble the rest of the cockpit. And as I mentioned before, you can check out the cockpit build in a previous video that I did. Next, I'm going to paint up these guns pretty good. I just use some different metallic colors for the guns just to break up the just monotony of painting a black gun. I've done it several different ways, and I kind of don't really like any of the ways that I've done them before, so just trying something new here, seeing if it works. I painted pretty much every single panel or box on this gun a different silver color from the Vallejo line, just seeing how it would look, and it broke it up pretty nicely, but with a wash and everything, it helped, but not really ideal, honestly. I don't know how to go about guns the best way yet. That's one of the things that I'm ready to improve on. But going forward, we can now assemble these guns up and see the rest of the build. These braces go in, and that pretty much finishes the interior of the gun bay of the ME262. Looking at it now, I kind of wish that I went a little bit further with some of the things in here, but what can you do? Oh well. Sometimes, you might be unhappy with some of your modeling things, and that can really discourage you. And honestly, it has discouraged me. I built that PBY Catalina, and man, I gotta say, my mojo has been down big time. Thanks to the modeling podcast, it's gotten me back on the bench and kind of doing some stuff here. So, yeah, definitely check out those modeling podcasts, even though it might seem a little bit like, I don't know, weird that they just talk about scale modeling when it's such a visual thing to do. It seriously is a booster. It definitely helps me in my modeling journey, and super informative and informational. So check out Mojo, Model Mojo. Dudes seem like really nice guys. Check out Plastic Posse podcast. I've been listening to theirs, and also my favorite is the Model Geeks podcast. Bunch of neat dudes. I've actually been on a video call with them, and yeah, a bunch of cool Navy dudes that can do it way better than I can. So definitely check those dudes out. But all those podcasts are equally good. Plastic Model Mojo is basically a tank guy and a 72nd scale aircraft dude, and they just have great podcasts. And the Plastic Posse podcast does some sci-fi stuff, some tanks, and some aircraft as well. And Model Geeks are basically all 148 scale aircraft, which is more my field, obviously, since that's all I build. So now onto the assembly. This goes into the nose seamlessly, and there's no additional nose weight that you need to add to the aircraft, unless you add some extra aftermarket parts in the rear of the aircraft. But yeah, no extra parts needed. It sits nice and flush, and it looks great inside there. I will say, in the gun nose area, right in between the cockpit and the gun nose, you are definitely going to need a little bit of trimming, because that seam was just a hair off, literally a hair off. So just make sure all your stuff is cleaned up nice and good, and it's possible that the paint held that up. It was so close. So just make sure that's right. But the rest of the alignment was really nice. I mean, you can just see the seams disappear as soon as I squeeze them together, except for the gun bay area. The nose actually fits together really well too. A little bit of sanding, that pretty much seals the deal. I locked these two fuselage halves together with obviously Tamiya cement, and that seems to do the trick. But with this gun nose area, I didn't opt to shave anything away. I just tried to squeeze it together, and that seemed to work. I used blue tack to stick some smaller parts onto the aircraft as needed, and now we can move on to the landing gear assembly. So I made a little bit of a mistake here. I was like, oh, this is sweet. The landing gear bay is literally two pieces. Okay, whatever. Well, that's not really the case. As soon as the fuselage goes, there's a bit more work to it. But for now, we're going to go on to the guns. We can get back to that later. So I've never built or finished any bombs. I did an F-35A Lightning II from Tamiya, and ended up losing all the decals from all the bombs, so it literally left me kind of pissed off about bombs. Not gonna lie. If I never have to do a bomb again, I'll be fine. But for this build, I wanted two bombs on it. It's going to be part of a diorama, and I think that would give it a little bit more character and I don't know, just something different that I've never done before. So I opted to do those actually first in the build, and I just painted them with green. Next, I'm putting these panels onto the actual kit, and they all fit literally perfectly. So perfectly, it's kind of hard to get them in the right place, to be honest. So whichever glue you use, I don't know if you use the AK glue or not, it is always easier to just use a nice thin glue instead of using super glue or anything like that. Next, I paint the inside of these little engine exhaust areas. I don't know what they're called. I'm not a jet dude. Just some bronze colors, like gold, yellow, and bronze. 3 different colors basically washed in there. It's super hard to get it to coat. I maybe should have airbrushed it, but I think it turned out pretty good after I washed it. And you're barely going to see these through anything anyways, but it gives it a little bit of character. It lightens it up in there, and it is the actual color of what the ME262 had in all my reference photos. So I used some 500 Mr. Surfacer just to fill in all the seams, and the stuff works really good. I find that it's really easy to sand, which can actually be a problem sometimes. Since it's so easy to sand, I end up sanding too much of the plastic off or too much of the filler off. I haven't gotten quite used to it yet. It's only my second time using it, but I definitely think it's a good filler and definitely usable in my opinion. I usually use Vallejo, like water-based filler, or Tamiya cement, but the Tamiya filler is like really hard to sand. It's literally impossible to sand. The stuff's a bit softer, and it's kind of nice to not have to deal with the Tamiya cement anymore. So, yeah, it's a good option. I haven't ever tried this before, but I actually do have some stuff in the mail, and I'm going to be doing some primer coats with Mr. Surfacer. Never tried it before, but I'm going to try it. I ended up weathering these things off camera as they were dinky and kind of round. I've never done them before, so I basically just painted it black and then did some light colors on it. I painted the back of the bombs black. I only found this in a couple reference photos, and after I had painted the bombs this color, when it was all done in the aircraft, they look really ugly on this thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I never made olive drab look so ugly in my life, but I did some weathering to it. I did some kind of like rust effects. I just wanted a reddish brown color showing through, and I did some light green streaking, just trying to give the bomb a little bit of character. With these colors, I find it best to dip them in a little bit of water and then go ahead and apply it as you see fit to your model, and that usually streaks pretty well right off the tip of the pencil there. It works really good. Since there was already like a wet reddish color anyways, I ended up using that to my advantage there. It's very, very subtle with the light green and stuff, but in the end, it kind of all blended in, to be honest. I could have used some lighter dust effects. I just didn't want to go that far in depth with this one. So I'm using this dental scriber pick to actually kind of pull out some of those lines, just trying something new. The razor saws are really helpful, and that's what I ended up using next because this really didn't do it. The razor saw is just the way to go, man. I tried this for a few minutes trying to get those lines scribed with the dental pick, and I couldn't get it. I know that Nemo does it. I couldn't get it. I tried washing out the dust with some water just to see if that would actually work, but it ended up not doing anything. It honestly almost made it worse. So definitely just use the glue, and that's all you need. Just use a strip of glue. I was trying to avoid this step, but just attempting something new again. Next, I can put the wings on the fuselage. Now you can see the nice interior inside of that landing gear bay. It just looks sick in there. I really do like how the landing gear bay came out in this build. It is really cool. Probably my favorite part of this build was the cockpit and the landing gear bay. I honestly think that's my favorite part of every build. So next I can put on all my jets. I don't even know what you call turbines. I don't even know what they're called. I don't even think these were turbines. I have no idea. Yeah, if it doesn't have a prop, it's not pretty. That's how I think. Even though I do like jets, you know, I built a couple jets, but it's just not, in my mind, like P-51 Mustang is my favorite airplane, or P-40 is just super sick, and it doesn't scream out to me as much as beautiful as a P-51 does. It just doesn't. Vacquos, maybe. Vacquos are there, but not ME-262s. So this was really sketchy. This is the first time I've ever tried gluing a canopy, which was just ass backwards to me, to be honest. This is just not something you should do, is touch a Tamiya cement to a clear part, but it ended up working great, and they didn't fog. I was just really careful about where I applied the cement, and yeah, popped it in there. And now I realized that I was supposed to glue this piece of gun sight into the actual cockpit, and now I can't even get it in there right. So good thing you can't see it in any of the photos, but yeah, that's not in there correctly at all. It's just floating around in there. If you shake the model, you can hear it shake up. It's kind of funny. Most of my models are maracas rather than models. So I wanted to speed this build along, and didn't happen. So I bought some Edward mask for it, and it honestly helped me with masking it off. Every single line was perfect. Everything fit perfectly, and I didn't even know that it came with wheel masks. I painted the wheels first, of course, so those didn't help at all, but I guess we'll save it for the next 262. And yeah, I bought the mask for it. I wanted to speed this project along. I wanted to give you guys a video a week, and it turned out to be a struggle to get this thing together. I really struggled this last couple months to get in the room. I've been trying so hard to find the fun in this hobby these last couple months, and I don't know. There's a lot going on right now. I'm really busy at work and my business, and I just really struggled to really have the confidence to get in the room and do what I love to do, which I love doing this. I love sharing it with you, and I love doing it. But, you know, I think that, I don't know, I would hope that my channel is motivating to people, that you can just pick up a model, and whether it's good or perfect or not, like, you can just have fun, you know? And, so I'm kind of glad that I went through the experience of not really having fun with the kit and not really having fun with the hobby for a little while, just to relate to other people that have had that experience, because I think we all go through it, and I'm going through it right now. It's just tough to pick up a kit. And especially with the YouTube channel, I can only build one kit at a time just because it's so much easier to manage my photos and manage everything. And as soon as I pull out another kit, my production goes way down. So anyways, I'm drilling out some holes here to open up this spot so that the canopy can sit right, so that I don't have to put a sponge in there and ruin a stick or ruin anything that sticks out on the interior. I just like painting it that way. It's much easier for me, and it's kind of much more seamless when I end up just sticking the canopy on the actual airplane. And yeah, it just makes it easier for me. It doesn't have to be perfectly on. It just has to be enough so that none of the paint goes through the tape and through the crack there. So as long as it's good enough, you're good to go and paint. So I'm pretty good at reading instructions, but on this kit, not so much. That is a piece that's supposed to go in that little spot right there, behind and first, before the fuselage halves get put together. And yes, it is very well put together, sanded and everything. So I had to take a knife and split these apart, cut half the nose off, and stick this guy right back in there where it's supposed to go before I put the landing gear in. And there's really no way to go about this, so don't make this mistake. Make sure that this part goes in there before you glue those halves together. Once those halves were together, I did all that work again. I glued it and sealed it up and also sanded and all that stuff. So, yep, make sure that part goes in or else the landing gear won't go in. Next, I'm using the Vallejo liquid mask, which I've never actually used before. I picked it up at the local hobby shop, and it went on really nice. It's kind of weird how it actually stuck to the plastic. Like, it didn't stick. I'm just going to say that. It didn't stick. It just, when I was brushing it on, it kind of like repelled it a little bit, kind of like painting silicone caulk, kind of just like repelled it. The other stuff doesn't do that. It goes on really smooth, and then what it'll do is it will kind of dissolve and separate after the fact. This separated before the fact that it was dry, so it's just a different experience. Same stuff, and it came out just fine. Vallejo stuff is just the same as the other stuff. It's just different application. So next I'm priming in Vallejo black, and I know what everybody's thinking. Why is this guy using Vallejo black primer? And until I started listening to some of these podcasts, I am asking myself the same question. So I have some black Mr. Surfacer in the mail right now with some thinner. Gonna try it out in my next build. We'll see how it comes out. I don't really have a problem using Vallejo black, but it definitely does stucco. Like sometimes it just splatters and spits out chunks of paint. I filter it, I water and thin it down as much as possible. I got a pretty high PSI, and I cannot get this stuff to really get a nice smooth surface. I messed around with it for a couple of years. I think it was worth the $18 that I used it, but it's time to move on to some Mr. Surfacer and get on with my life. Anyways, I bought some Ares kits, just landing gear bays. The parts that come with the kit actually have injection mold marks on the interior of them, so I just opted to buy some new ones so that I didn't have to deal with any injector pin marks or sand them or filament or whatever. So it just made it a lot easier, and yeah, I was able to just snap these right off the sprue. I didn't even have to cut them. These are really highly detailed, and I have to say that they are almost translucent. They're so thin, and that's a really realistic look, especially when these two parts kind of overlap in the landing gear, so it really gives it a little bit of depth when you're looking at it. I just put a piece of sandpaper on the table and sanded these perfectly smooth as it was meant to be. Next, I'm going to be modeling some gray paint on the underside of the wing. This is just to break up the monotony of the black and also give the airplane some definition and some panel lines. I do this on pretty much every single build. It's a good way to get some texture in the paint job and add some life to it. I find that if I do this step, I really don't have to do much weathering afterwards. It's just, I don't know, it's more satisfying to me to airbrush than to do like weathering techniques on the underside. So I have about probably 20 PSI on this. It's kind of high for this kind of stuff, but I'm also using Vallejo, and you know how that can be. It's thinned out, probably 70-30, and I find that that's a pretty good mix for Vallejo paints, especially with a PSI that I'm using, and I'm just kind of randomly going around, making sure not to hit any panel lines. Now, there's another number of ways to do this, and it's kind of like I painted for a long time, so I kind of think of this as a step-by-step process, especially with when it comes to painting in particular colors. The underside is pretty simple. Like, you do your pre-shading, then you do the solid color in the bottom. If you're doing a camo, it gets a little bit more complex. It gets a little bit more complicated, and especially when I haven't done much camo in my life. So you're kind of taking it from someone who hasn't had much experience. But what I tried to do was just make the underlying problem come out in the final finish. So the underlying problem is that the underside needed definition, and it needed some weathering. It needed some love, some texture, some color, so I painted each panel a little bit differently. And then I went ahead and used the color to paint some panels basically pre-shaded with the color itself of the underside of the aircraft. And that even gave it more texture. It made kind of panels stand out and panels stand in as you'd like it. So just a neat technique to make sure that some panels were different than other panels. And it's really, really minimal, especially when on the top side, I actually used like 5 different colors to paint all the different panels and stuff there. Now I just coat and then let it dry to make sure that I'm not coating too much, as I want all that work to stand out in the end. In this step, I'm also really careful not to go over my other panels that I pre-shaded, just so that it gives it a natural look when you're looking at the other color that overlaps this green color, so that you're seeing the same type of weathered effects on the same area of the aircraft. This is one of my favorite things to do on a build. It does intimidate me, so it takes me a while to get to the bench and be motivated and confident enough to do this step, but I find that if you just buckle in, thin your paint, and get to it, it seems to work out okay. So some splatters did happen on this build for sure. That happens on every single build. I can usually make up some reason why there's a huge airbrush splatter somewhere, but anyways, I just tried my best, and it turned out really well, especially using our Tamiya paints for the underside here. Yeah, I can't say enough good words about Tamiya paints. They're just legit, man. There's no problems with them whatsoever. I think for future builds, I think I will add some, because everyone has seen Tamiya light blue or Tamiya, green or whatever. So I definitely think I want to vary the colors a little bit, make sure that my airplane's looking a little bit more unique than others. But that's for future reference, future builds. This coat went on just fine. I pretty much at 17 PSI around here with Tamiya paints, and I have it about 50-50, because Tamiya paints are actually a little bit thinner than most Vallejo paints. So the same steps I applied here as the undercoat, and I just want to make sure that I'm not ruining the top surface of anything, because if I ruin that top surface, I ruin that top coat, it's really going to lose the depth and feel that the aircraft is being weathered the same way with the same paint or different paint. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't go too far on this. So I just drew a straight line with the airbrush and made sure everything was looking nice there. This was probably like 5th or 6th time doing some free coating with the airbrush, and I feel like I'm getting better and better and more confident with it the more I go. Next, I taped off that color after a couple days of drying for sure, and then started to pre-shade all my panels for my top coat. So I thought it was unique in doing this, actually. I haven't seen anybody do it on any other channels. I've pretty much seen every single YouTube video out there. But basically I go ahead, and I'm sure that it's been done. Like, I'm not, but to me, I thought that I was actually being unique. But apparently this is an old technique, is you paint the panels, and I'm pretty sure this is for people who mostly build aircraft with, you guessed it, raised panel lines, because it's the only way to give the aircraft true depth is to lighten up and shade these panels. So anyways, I used a bunch of different colors on a bunch of different panels on the actual top part in the camo, and then after that was done, I went ahead and thinned my paint to like 80-20 thinner, and made like a translucent layer so that you could see all these colors in the actual camo itself, and it turned out really good. This is my go-to way to paint any dark color because those light colors just pop really nicely. It was the same way I did the Catalina, which definitely check that video out. I did a lot of photo etch, I did a lot of time, and I put a lot of effort into all that. So definitely check out the Catalina build. And but anyways, literally, this is a go-to for me. It's so easy. It's way easier than masking off panels and then doing it afterwards. You get the same effect. So essentially, you get the same effect from doing something that's like 10 times faster. You just go ahead, do your paints, and then do your top coat, and then you're done. Like, it takes one evening to do all this. You can use any color, but I definitely wouldn't use lime green, that's for sure. And this Tamiya color, I definitely don't think was right for the ME262. I honestly think that I got the wrong color, wrong shade. I probably should have put some black in this or something, just to darken it up, or maybe some brown, anything. But this turned out really, really lime green. So I'm wondering if I bought the wrong color, or maybe, I mean, I'm sure it was on my end for sure. But I mean, whatever. It turned out really cool. It's funny. My dad just bought this RC Junkers Stuka. He didn't buy it at the start because he looked at it and he was like, dude, this green looks like lime green. Kind of looks like crap. So, of course, I build a German aircraft, and sure enough, this thing looks lime green. Like, it does not look right. And I was sitting there looking at my airplane going, man, that is rough, dude. That does not look right at all. But hey, you know, it's translucent and you can see all the panels underneath it. As you can see, I'm doing just light coats, kind of streaking over. And always after you do your first coat, let it dry, see how much it actually covers. And then you go back and you do your second coat, let it dry. Same process over and over. If you're using an acrylic paint, always keep your tip wet. So I just have a brush sitting to my right, and I dip it in water and brush the tip of the airbrush when it starts to kind of funk around on me. And yeah, that's all I can say for this, because it's just really, it takes a light touch, and it takes time, and it takes an eye and really good light to see what the heck is happening with your paint. And I did this just enough. I mean, if I did one shade lighter, it would have been not enough. And if I did one shade too dark, it would have been too much. So I definitely think that it just takes a little bit of finesse to get this right. And if there was any panels that stood out too much, I just went ahead and painted that area green as needed. Now, the crazy part of this build is that now that it's done, you can see all the panels are very well defined, and you can definitely tell that they're different shades of green, which was exactly what I was looking for. Next, I could do the top color of the top of the fuselage with this green color. And this freehand was really, really easy to do. I don't know why I was so intimidated by it, but you know, it's like you make so many mistakes with your airbrush over time, and then you go, oh, I don't know about doing this right now. I'm not the most confident airbrusher. You know, I don't have a $600 airbrush and a seamless compressor and ... It's like I have a pretty simple setup that works, and and that's what you have to deal with sometimes. And yeah, I mean, it works, right? That I like using what works, and it does work. It takes a little bit of time and patience, but I think me using a different airbrush will take as much time and patience to learn how to use it rather than just dealing with what I have. And it's honestly not much dealing. The airbrush that I have is a Grex airbrush. It works really well. It gets very, very fine details, really nice lines. The air compressor, I actually broke the thing on it, so I have a whole bunch of plumber's tape on it, just making sure that the seal is tight, and it heats up really, really quick, which is weird. I've done a number of tests on like opening a window, making sure cold air is getting to it, blah, 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 but it heats up like almost immediately. I can only do like one session, so I got my good old master air compressor with me, so I just switch them on and off, and that seems to do the job. Next, I'm doing this German camo, and this was a lot easier than I thought. To be honest, it was a lot easier than I thought. One, the camo scheme is very loose. It's very jagged. It's very like messy and could have gone anywhere. This is actually my first time freehanding any type of camo scheme like this. And it was very, very, I wouldn't even say time consuming. I just went around, did random stuff, coated stuff darker, and made sure I went around the same lines a bunch of times, and then it came out good. I couldn't be more happy with the way the camo scheme came out. The top of the aircraft got a little bit of overspray, so it's like darker in that area, and I don't mind that. That just gives it a little bit more character, gives it a little bit more contrast, and it highlights the wings a little bit, so that kind of looks good. As for actually doing this dark green squiggly stuff all over the place, I feel like the airbrush handled it really well, and I also feel like I feel like I didn't struggle too much doing this. I just took a deep breath, and I sat there, and I just went around where I needed to go around. And I was like, oh, well, this little line looks like it would be cool if this was darker. And then I went around the next one. I was like, oh, I think this needs to be like a figure 8 shape, an egg shape, and a star shape. So I'll go in that motion. Figure 8, egg, star. And then I did I kind of just put shapes in my mind, and I made it flow through the airbrush, and it kind of turned out really random everywhere. I do have this brush thinned out probably like 70-30 actually with this Tamiya paint. I feel like that was pretty good. The pressure was at like 15, so it wasn't really low, and my brush was literally like 2 centimeters away from anything. If I was actually doing stuff on a line, it was way closer, but yeah, this seems to work. This is my first attempt at this type of camouflage, and I surprised myself because, you know, after using an airbrush so much just to highlight panel lines and screwing up so much every single time, yeah, I mean, I can't be more happy with how it came out. I just love it. And this is my favorite part of the build. Like, I cannot believe that the camouflage actually freaking worked, dude. Like, no way. And it worked really well, and it looks really sweet, and you can see the contrast. You could see all the different elements of the squiggles. I mean, I couldn't be more happy. So, you know, that's like one of the things. And on this channel, and here I'm taping off some, but this is more important. On this channel, like, this is a journey channel. Like, this, I built my first model back in the hobby. It was a P40. And then I was like, well, this is freaking awesome. I'm really happy with what I did and what I made work. I bought an airbrush and did everything that the YouTubers were doing. I was like, dude, this is really, really fun. And then I built a P61, which was a mistake. But it turned out really, really good for my capabilities. And then I built a P38, monogram P38, and I was like, oh, dude, this is sick. So I started filming with the P38 right off the rip. And it's just been a journey of me elevating as a modeler. Like, that's just what my channel's about. It's just taking a normal dude that didn't know how to do it, and then I started doing it, and now I'm here. Like, I'm doing really, really complex German camouflage, and it really makes me happy. Anyways, I taped off all this stuff, and now I refilled in all the panels. This is what I'm doing right now, is refilling in all the panels that I painted previously. I took a picture of the wings beforehand, so I knew which colors went where on which panel, and then I duplicated that effect with the same colors on the panels that replicated on the places where the camouflage was. Now I can go in with my airbrush color, my final color for the build, with this dark green, and do that translucent effect again. And I'm really being careful here to make sure that that translucent effect doesn't go too far. My paint wasn't thinned out quite enough, so it did go a little bit too far, but I think overall, I think it looks sweet. You can definitely tell that each panel is kind of highlighted the same as the next. As I peel off the tape here, you can see my very strong luck with Vallejo primer. I have not had this thing peel up on me yet. So that's just one of those things that's like, well, I use it because it doesn't, you can use tape on it and it won't peel up like every single time. I don't know. Other people have problems with it. Maybe it's different plastic or something, but I haven't had any problems with Vallejo peeling up at all. I mean, Literally almost never. It's because I've used something else that something has peeled. So hopefully that doesn't happen with the stuff that I'm getting, but just because the Vallejo stuff is chunky, it just spits out boogers everywhere. So right here, you can actually really tell that there's a lot of color modulations in this build, and that's just really awesome. I think that it came out really nice, especially with all the work that I put into pre-coating the panels and stuff, and then redoing it basically for the second coat. I think that everything came out really good, and you can tell that the panels are actually kind of weathered the same. It's a neat effect. It definitely takes an artistic touch to do this, for sure. I wouldn't call myself an artist or anything, but it just takes that time and attentiveness to be like, okay, I need to make sure that this is like this light and this is not this light and this is dark and this color is here. Like, it just took that time and attentiveness. Like, oh crap, I need to look at this picture again and see what happened here and what I'm going for in this panel. And yeah, I mean, it's a good way to go to get a nice weathered effect. I don't think it's 100% for sure that you're going to get that perfect 100% paint job, though. I don't think that that's a 100% way to go. I think it might be easier to just do the camo, tape it off, no weathering effects on the wings, and then afterwards do some just airbrushing effects on the wings. And yeah, so maybe on the next German build, I'll venture into that avenue. This is a cool way to do it. It definitely came out the way I would like it to come out, but I definitely think that there's other easier options out there. Next, I can peel off the tape, and this is pretty much the most exciting part of the build for me. It just, as soon as I peel off the tape, the airplane comes together. I mean, you're talking about the canopy. You can see inside again. You're like, oh man, I remember building the seat a month ago, and yeah, you can just do. Your mind goes, heck yeah, dude, I can fly this thing now. You know, I can play with it now. I can sit on my bench or go in a box. Yeah. So most exciting part for me is right here. I'm peeling stuff off. I'm ready to do some weathering, and the thing is looking sweet. Next, I peel off these things, as these weren't actually the things that I used. They're just to cover up that area. I used the Aries set, so, and I can put on some landing gear. I did have to super glue these, make sure they're straight. And yeah, I mean, they were a really tight fit. The landing gear was a really tight fit, except for the left side. The left side needed a little bit more super glued. And then I let that set for a whole day just to make sure that it doesn't move or anything. But here are the final photos. I just want to say real quick, thank you guys to all my subscribers out there. I really appreciate every single view. You guys are awesome, and I really do. I just thank you so much. You guys are everything to my hobby. I love sharing this stuff with you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of these photos. And I gotta say, let's get back to building.